The wind screamed through the pines that January night, 20 below and dropping. Vera Thornwood heard the knock while stoking her forge. 3 weak taps, then silence. She hadn't spoken to another soul in 4 days. Didn't want to start now. The knock came again, fainter. When she opened the door, the child collapsed across her threshold. 9 years old, maybe. His back showed belt welts through the torn shirt. A silver buckle pattern stamped into frozen skin. One hand clutched a scrap of paper. She saw the words Cassidy Homestead 640 acres before he whispered it. They beat me. His lips were blue. Aunt says I'm hers now. Vera caught him before he hit the floorboards. Through the blizzard, a lantern bobbed into view a mile out. Coming fast, the rider would be here in 10 minutes, and Vera Thornwood would have to choose between the law and the child bleeding in her arms. Vera carried him inside and kicked the door shut. The forge coals glowed red in the corner. She'd been shaping a horseshoe when he knocked, the iron still hot on the anvil. She laid him on the bench near the stove, wrapped him in the wool blanket from her bed. It smelled of wood smoke and long silence. His breathing came shallow. Frost had blackened 2 fingertips on his left hand. The welts on his back wept clear fluid where the skin had split. She'd seen men flogged in the war. This was worse. Smaller target, more rage behind it. She lit the lamp and examined him methodically. Broken nose, weak old, left eye swollen nearly shut, ribs intact but bruised deep. The belt marks wrapped around his sides like someone had swung for the kidney and didn't care what else they hit. When she reached for her own belt to add leather to the stove's kindling, he screamed. Not the belt. Please, not the belt. His good eye rolled white with terror. Vera froze, then slowly unbuckled it and set it on the far table where he could see it wasn't moving toward him. I'm not going to hurt you, she said quietly. Her voice came out rough from disuse. You're safe now. He didn't believe her. His whole body shook, and not just from cold. She heated water in the kettle, found the jar of salve she used for rope burns, tore an old shirt into bandages. Her hands were calloused from the forge, scarred thick. But she'd learned gentleness from her husband. He taught her how to touch a newborn those few hours before the fever started and wouldn't stop. The child flinched every time she moved. She kept her motion slow, predictable. When she lifted him to wrap the bandages around his ribs, he whimpered but didn't fight. What's your name? She asked. Jasper. It came out as a whisper. Jasper Cassidy. Cassidy. She knew that name from somewhere, couldn't place it. The deed paper lay on the table where it had fallen from his hand. She picked it up carefully. The paper was old, torn along one edge like someone had ripped it in half. Legal script faded. Grant of Homestead, Section 12, Township 3 North. Marcus and Eleanor Cassidy. 640 acres. Filed 1879. Expensive land, prime creek access, timber rights, flat enough for rail. Where's your folks? Dead. He said it flat, like he'd said it too many times. Wagon turned over last fall. Wheel came off. And your aunt? His face went tight with something worse than fear. Aunt Delilah. She says she's my guardian now. Says the land's hers till I'm grown and I'm never going to be grown enough. He touched his swollen eye. She said if I told anyone, she'd do worse than this. The lamplight caught the silver buckle pattern again. Distinctive, ornate. 3 horses stamped in relief. Expensive belt for a woman claiming guardianship of an orphan. Outside, hoofbits crunched through frozen snow. The dog barked once, sharp. Vera moved to the window. 2 riders now, not one. The first carried a lantern. The second wore a star that caught the light. Sheriff Crane and a thin woman in a black duster, surveyor's transit case strapped to her saddle. That her? Vera asked. Your aunt? Jasper nodded, his breath coming fast. The riders stopped 30 yards out. The thin woman dismounted, brushed snow from her coat with the careful gestures of someone used to being watched. Even from here, Vera could see the silver buckle at her waist. Thornwood. The voice carried smooth over the wind. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Sheriff Crane looked uncomfortable, his horse dancing sideways. Vera, we need to talk. Miss Hargrove here says her nephew ran off after some discipline. Says she's his legal guardian. Vera glanced at Jasper. He'd gone rigid, his good eye fixed on the door like it might burst open any second. She pulled her coat on and stepped onto the porch, pulling the door closed behind her. The wind bit through wool like it was nothing. Delilah Hargrove smiled. Up close, she had the look of a woman who counted things. Property lines, timber board feet, the exact value of other people's desperation. Her eyes flicked past Vera to the closed door. Now, Vera, I can call you Vera. There's been a misunderstanding. My nephew, he's a troubled boy, headstrong like his father. Sometimes he needs correction, you understand? He ran off tonight and I've been half mad with worry. She pulled a folded paper from her coat. I have the guardianship documents right here, legal and proper, signed by Judge Whitmore himself. Sheriff Crane cleared his throat. Vera, if the papers are legal. Let me see the boy first, Vera said. Let me hear him say he wants to go back. Hargrove's smile thinned. Her eyes lingered on the deed paper visible through the window, and something hungry moved behind her face. That Cassidy property document he's carrying, that belongs to me now, too, as his legal guardian. All very proper. She stepped closer. So I'll ask polite-like. Bring me my nephew, and we'll forget this unpleasantness. Behind Vera, through the door, she heard Jasper whisper, please don't make me go back. The church steps were crowded by noon the next day. Word traveled fast in Redstone Valley. A giant woman blacksmith defying a legal guardian made for good winter gossip. Father Matthias Dunn had called the meeting himself, ringing the bell in the measured Sunday rhythm that meant community business, not emergency. Vera stood to one side with Jasper pressed against her leg. He'd cleaned up some. Rose Tanaka from the telegraph office had brought clothes that almost fit, combed the tangles from Jasper's hair with patient fingers. But the bruises showed clear in daylight, purple and yellow spreading down his jaw. Hargrove arrived with Sheriff Crane and two men Vera didn't recognize. Town merchants by their clean coats and soft hands. Men who dealt in paper, not dirt. The crowd split down the middle without anyone saying so. Ranchers and their wives on Vera's side, they knew what a beating looked like. The merchant class on Hargrove's, they knew what legal documents looked like, and that mattered more. Father Dunn raised his hands for quiet. He was old, 70 if he was a day, but his voice carried like he was calling down judgment. We're here because a child showed up beaten half to death on a woman's doorstep, and now two people are arguing over who has the right to him. He looked at Hargrove. Delilah, you claim guardianship. Present your case. Hargrove stepped forward, all false concern. Father, I appreciate you calling this meeting. Transparency is important. She unfolded the guardianship document with a flourish. My brother Marcus and his wife Eleanor, God rest them, died 4 months ago when their wagon overturned. Tragic accident. As Marcus's only living kin, I petitioned Judge Whitmore for guardianship of young Jasper. Jasper, Vera said. Of Jasper Cassidy. And the court granted it, legal and binding. She held up the paper. Sheriff Crane's eyes flicked over it, and he nodded slowly. Now, Hargrove continued, I'll be the first to admit, I'm new to raising children. I'm a businesswoman, not a mother. Sometimes my discipline is firmer than it should be. I regret that. She looked at Jasper with what might pass for remorse if you didn't look at her eyes. But he's my responsibility, my blood, and Ms. Thornwood, whatever her intentions, has no legal right to keep him from me. A murmur ran through the crowd. Vera felt it shift. Heard the words blood and legal doing their work. Martha Crane, the sheriff's wife, spoke up. That child's been beaten something awful, Delilah. You're saying that's just discipline. Children need correction sometimes, Hargrove said smoothly. My own father took a strap to me more than once, and I turned out fine. It's not pretty, but it's a guardian's right. Rights, one of the merchants muttered. Law's the law. Rose Tanaka pushed through the crowd. She was small, barely 5 feet, but people made room. Being the only Japanese woman in a Montana mining town taught you how to take up space. I'd like to hear from the child, she said. Hargrove's smile flickered. He's 9 years old and traumatized. Children that age will say anything. Then you've got nothing to fear from him speaking, Rose said. Father Dunn nodded. Jasper, can you tell us what happened? Jasper's hand tightened on Vera's coat. His voice came out small but steady. Aunt Delilah came after Mama and Papa died. She said she'd take care of me, but she didn't want me. She wanted our land. He pointed at Hargrove's belt. That buckle, that's what made these. He turned his back, and someone in the crowd gasped as the shirt pulled tight over the welts. That's the pattern. Plain as day, a rancher's wife said. 3 horses. Hargrove's face hardened. He's lying or confused. Grief does strange things to children. He's got your belt marks on his back, Vera said quietly. Prove it. Hargrove's voice went cold. Prove I'm the only woman in Montana with a silver buckle. Prove he didn't get those marks somewhere else and blame me because he doesn't want discipline. She turned to the crowd. This is what I'm dealing with, a child who'd rather live with a stranger than follow rules. And now that stranger is turning you all against me with sentiment and speculation. The papers look legal, Sheriff Crane said reluctantly. Judge Whitmore's signature is right there. Dated 2 weeks after the Cassidys died. Fast work, Rose said. Almost like she knew they were going to die. The air went still. Hargrove's eyes locked on Rose. Careful, Miss Tanaka. Accusing a woman of murder is serious business. I'm not accusing, Rose said. Just noting the timing. Father Dunn stepped between them. Vera, do you have any legal standing here? Any documentation that gives you the right to keep this child? Vera's jaw worked. No. Just common sense that says you don't send a beaten child back to the woman who beat him. Common sense isn't law, one of the merchants said. Several others nodded. Hargrove pulled a second document from her coat. This one was newer, the ink still dark. In light of Miss Thornwood's interference, I've obtained a court order. She has 10 days to return Jasper to my custody or she'll be charged with kidnapping. She handed it to Sheriff Crane. I didn't want to do this, but she's left me no choice. Sheriff Crane read it over, his face going tight. It's signed by Judge Whitmore. Dated yesterday. Yesterday, Rose repeated. How'd you get to the territorial capital and back in a blizzard? Telegraph, Hargrove said. Judge was passing through Lewiston, 40 miles east. I wrote out this morning after the boy ran. She smiled at Rose. You'd know all about telegraphs, wouldn't you, Miss Tanaka? Oh wait, your line's been down for weeks. Terrible inconvenience. Rose's face went very still. Vera felt the ground shifting under her. Legal papers, court orders, a judge's signature. The town was splitting in real time. Half seeing a child who needed protection, half seeing a woman breaking the law. Father Dunn looked tired. I can't overrule a court order. But Vera, you've got 10 days. That's something. 10 days to what? Vera asked. Find a lawyer? Ride to the capital? It's 3 days each way in good weather, and there's another storm coming. Hargrove adjusted her coat, the silver buckle catching lamplight. Time enough to do the right thing, Vera. Or time enough to lose everything you own. Your choice. She tipped her hat to the crowd and walked away, the merchants following. Sheriff Crane lingered, his hand on his pistol, but his eyes apologetic. "I'm sorry, Vera, but if you don't return him, I'll have to arrest you." "That's my job." Jasper's hand found Vera's, his voice barely carried. "I told you she doesn't lose." Through the dispersing crowd, Vera saw Rose Tanaka staring at the telegraph office. Her face had gone calculating, and her fingers drummed against her coat in a pattern that sounded like Morse code. Father Dunn came to the ranch 2 days later, his horse laboring through snow that had drifted waist-deep overnight. Vera watched him approach from the forge where she'd been heating iron she didn't need, just to have something to do with her hands. "Judge Whitmore is in the territorial capital for 3 weeks, Dunn said, dismounting stiffly. The cold made his joints ache. Vera could hear it in the way he moved. "Legislative session. Won't be back till mid-February. That buys you time." "Time for what?" Vera asked. "Hargrove's got the law sewn up." "Maybe." Dunn stamped snow from his boots. "But I knew Jasper's parents. Marcus Cassidy worked the stamp mill before he filed his homestead claim. Good man. Careful." He paused. "He came to confession once, maybe 2 years back. Said his sister Delilah had been asking questions about the property, how much it was worth, whether Marcus had a will, what would happen if both parents died." "You think Hargrove planned it?" "I think Marcus was scared enough to confess it to a priest." Dunn's breath plumed white. "And I think our church records are incomplete. I've been looking for Marcus's baptismal record, marriage certificate, anything that might mention guardianship arrangements. Haven't found it yet. But I will." Inside the house, Jasper was learning to knead bread. Rose Tanaka had brought flour and yeast, stood at the table showing him how to fold and press. The smell of it, warm, yeasty, alive, filled the small space. Rose looked up when the men entered. "Father." "Vera." She dusted flour from her hands. "Jasper, keep folding. Feel how it changes under your fingers." Jasper nodded, his face serious with concentration. The bruises were fading to green. The swelling in his eye had gone down enough that he could open it halfway. Rose gestured the men outside. On the porch, she kept her voice low. "The telegraph line's been cut," she said. "Not weather damage. Clean slice. About 2 miles east of town, right where it crosses Hargrove's land." Vera felt something cold settle in her chest. "How long?" 3 weeks, maybe 4. She pulled a scrap of copper wire from her pocket. "I rode out this morning, found this near the cut. Tool marks on it, surveyor's pliers, the kind with the unique threading grip." "Hargrove carries surveyor's tools," Dunn said quietly. "She does." Rose turned the wire in her fingers. "Man cuts a telegraph line, it's usually because he doesn't want messages going somewhere or coming back." "The capital," Vera said. Rose nodded. "I can repair it. Used to help my husband maintain the lines at Fort Laramie. But if Hargrove figures out I'm doing it, Sheriff Crane will have to arrest me for trespassing." She smiled without humor. "Being the only Japanese woman in town already makes me suspicious. Don't need to give them more reasons." "How long to fix it?" 3 days if the weather holds, then another day to get a message to the capital and back." She looked at Vera. "What do you want to ask them?" "If Judge Whitmore really signed those guardianship papers," Dunn said, "or if someone forged his signature." "Can they tell from a telegram?" "Territorial Clerk's office keeps samples of all judges' handwriting for exactly this reason." Dunn's face was grim. "Frontier law runs on paper. Makes it easy to fake if you know how." Jasper appeared in the doorway, his hands white with flour. "The dough is ready, Miss Rose." "I think." Rose went inside. Vera heard her voice, patient and warm. "Good. Now we let it rise. Cover it with this cloth and set it near the stove. Warmth makes it grow." "Like spring?" Jasper asked. "Just like spring." Vera and Dunn stood in the cold. The sun was setting early, the way it did in deep winter. Shadows stretched long across the snow. 3 days to fix the line, Vera said. 4 days for an answer. That's 7 of my 10 days gone. And if the answer comes back that the signature is real? Dunn asked. Then I'm a kidnapper and he goes back to a woman who beats him. And if it's forged, then Hargrove's committed fraud. But she'll run before the law catches her, and we'll never prove what happened to his parents. Inside, Jasper laughed at something Rose said. A small sound, fragile as new ice. It was the first time Vera had heard him laugh. Dunn put his hand on Vera's shoulder. Marcus Cassidy told me something else in that confession. Said if anything happened to him and Eleanor, I should make sure Jasper went to a good person. Said there was someone he trusted, someone who'd saved his life once. He paused. He didn't give me a name, but I'm starting to think I'm looking at her. Before Vera could answer, Rose came back out. Her face was different. Sharper, decided. I'll fix the line tomorrow night, she said. Storm's coming in after that. Might give me cover. If Hargrove catches me, tell the sheriff I was checking for weather damage. Lie if you have to. I'm not asking you to risk. You're not asking. I'm choosing. She looked back at the house where Jasper's shadow moved behind the window. That child's learning Morse code. Taught him a help and safe this morning. He tapped it out 20 times like he was memorizing a prayer. Rose's voice went soft. I know what it's like when nobody believes you. When the law is just a word people use to keep you quiet. She walked to her horse, mounted, then looked down at them. 3 days, gentlemen. Then we'll see if truth still travels faster than lies. She rode off into the dimming light. Behind Vera, the forge coals glowed red through the window, and somewhere in the distance, the creek ice groaned as the temperature dropped another 10 degrees. The forge was hottest in the hour before dawn. Vera had Jasper hold the tongs while she hammered, teaching him the rhythm. 3 strikes and turn. 3 strikes and turn. The horseshoe glowed orange under her hammer, throwing sparks that died in the cold air. Why do you make it so slow? Jasper asked. His hands were steadier now, healing. The frost-blackened fingertips had peeled away to pink skin underneath. Good things can't be rushed, little one. She plunged the iron into the water bucket. Steam hissed up, smelling of hot metal and minerals. Rush it, the metal gets brittle. Shatters first time a horse puts weight on it. She watched the shoe cool, half-formed. Will you finish it? When it's ready, she said, setting it on the bench. When we're ready. He looked at her sidelong. You mean when I'm ready? Smart boy. Too smart for 9 years old. Vera wondered what he'd been before Hargrove got hold of him. What'd he be again if he got the chance? They were walking back to the house when Sheriff Crane rode up, and Vera knew from his face that the ground was about to drop away. Vera. Crane dismounted, wouldn't meet her eyes. Judge Whitmore sent an order. Came through Lewiston yesterday. Ryder brought it overnight. Judge is supposed to be in the Capitol. Came back early. Legislative session ended. Crane pulled the envelope from his coat, the paper crisp with cold. I'm sorry. Vera read it standing in the snow. The words were clean, legal, final. Custody order. Jasper Cassidy to be returned to legal guardian Delilah Hargrove within 10 days of posting, or Vera Thornwood will be subject to charges of kidnapping, custodial interference, and obstruction of legal guardianship. Failure to comply will result in property seizure to cover court costs and fines estimated at $5,000, plus imprisonment not to exceed 2 years. $5,000. Her ranch was worth $3,200 on a good day. There's more, Crane said quietly. Hargrove filed a claim with the Territorial Land Office. Says if Jasper stays in unlawful custody for 30 days, she can petition to have the Cassidy homestead deed transferred to her permanently. Something about abandoned property rights. He's not abandoning it. He's 9 years old. I know, Crane's voice was tired, but the law says a guardian controls a minor's property. If he's not in her custody, she can argue his refusing guardianship, which makes the property abandoned. Vera looked at the paper again, saw the trap clearly now. Hargrove didn't just want Jasper back. She wanted him gone. Back in her custody long enough to break him, to make him disappear the way others had disappeared. Then the land would be hers, clean and legal. How much is that homestead worth? To Hargrove. Crane glanced toward town. Rail company's been surveying through Section 12 for 3 months. Right of way through there is worth 8, maybe 10,000. He paused. Marcus Cassidy's wagon went off the road in September. Wheel came off on a flat stretch where wheels don't come off. I wrote it up as an accident because that's what it looked like, but I've been thinking about it. And? I found the wheel hub last week when the snow melted some. Bolt threads were filed. Not worn, filed. Crane's jaw worked. Someone wanted that wagon to crash. Jasper had gone very still. His face was white. You're saying Hargrove killed my parents? His voice came out small and hard at the same time. Crane crouched down to his level. I'm saying I should have looked closer. I'm saying I'm sorry. He stood. And I'm saying I'll give you every minute of those 10 days, Vera. But on day 11, I have to come out here with deputies. That's the job. He mounted his horse, looked down at them. Rose Tanaka has been asking questions about telegraph lines. Tell her to be careful. Hargrove's got eyes all over this territory. After he left, Vera stood holding the court order while the wind picked up. The forge coals were dying behind them, the half-finished horseshoe cooling on the bench. Jasper was crying silently, tears freezing on his cheeks. You're going to send me back? No. You have to. She'll take your ranch, put you in jail. His voice cracked. I heard you last night talking to Father Dunn. You said maybe it was better if I went back. Said you can't lose everything you built. Vera felt her chest go tight. She had said that, late, when she thought he was asleep, running through options, trying to find a way out that didn't end with a child beaten and a good woman in chains. Jasper, it's okay. I understand. I'm not worth a whole ranch. I'm not worth you going to jail. He turned toward the barn. I'll go back. Tell Sheriff Crane I'll go back tomorrow. Aunt Delilah won't be as mad if I go on my own. Jasper, stop. But he was running now, stumbling through the snow toward the barn. Vera caught up in 3 strides, but he'd already scrambled up the ladder to the hay loft, pulled himself into the farthest corner where the roof sloped low. She climbed after him. The loft smelled of dried grass and mouse nests, warmer than outside but still cold enough to see breath. He'd curled up against the wall, making himself as small as possible. I won't fail you, Vera said. You already are. He wouldn't look at her. Everyone does. She sat down heavily, the old boards creaking under her weight. Her dead daughter would be 7 now if she'd lived. Would have had Jasper's dark hair, maybe. Her husband's quick mind. I lost my husband and baby 7 years ago, she said. Childbirth went wrong. I couldn't get the doctor in time. Blizzard had the roads closed. I held our daughter for maybe an hour before she stopped breathing. Held Thomas for 3. Her voice roughened. I came out here because I thought if I stayed away from people, stayed away from caring, I couldn't fail anyone else. Couldn't lose anyone else. Jasper turned slightly, listening. But you knocked on my door, Vera continued. And I let you in, and that means something. She reached over carefully, and he didn't pull away when she put her hand on his shoulder. I failed them, Jasper. Failed my husband and my daughter because I wasn't fast enough, wasn't prepared enough. But I won't fail you. Damn the ranch. Damn the law. You stay with me and we'll face whatever comes. What if they take everything? Then we start over. But we start over together. She pulled him close and he collapsed against her, sobbing the way he should have been allowed to sob for months ago when his parents died. "You're worth everything, little one. Don't you ever think different?" Outside, the wind howled. The 10-day deadline started today. By Vera's count, Rose had 48 hours to fix the telegraph line before the next storm hit. And somewhere in town, Delilah Hargrove was counting down the days until she owned 640 acres and a dead man's child. Rose left on the second night when the moon was dark and the wind covered sound. Vera watched her ride east with a tool bag strapped to her saddle and a rifle across her back. She'd refused Vera's offer to come along. "One person on Hargrove's land is trespassing," she'd said. "Two is conspiracy. You stay with Jasper." The waiting was worse than any fight Vera had ever been in. She paced the house, checked the windows, heated coffee she didn't drink. Jasper sat at the table, learning to read from the one book she owned, a Bible her mother had given her 20 years back. "What's this word?" he pointed. "Mercy. And this one? Justice." She looked at him. "Sometimes they're the same thing. Sometimes they're not." He traced the letters with his finger, sounding them out. His hands were steady now. The burns from the forge healed to smooth skin. He'd stopped flinching when she moved fast. Small victories. Around midnight, Father Dunn arrived on foot, breathing hard. Snow clung to his coat. "Found something," he said, shaking ice from his beard. He pulled a document from inside his shirt, kept warm against his chest. "Marriage certificate. Marcus and Eleanor Cassidy, 1874. Filed with the church records, not the county." He spread it on the table. "Look at the witness signatures." Vera bent close. 2 names in faded ink. Matthias Dunn, presiding. Vera Thornwood, witness. The memory came back slowly. A summer day, the small church in Bannock. She'd been passing through, stopped for water. The young couple getting married had been sure to witness, and Vera had signed because it seemed like the Christian thing to do. She'd forgotten about it an hour later. "I was at their wedding," she said quietly. "You were more than that." Dunn pulled out another paper, this one older, more fragile. Last Will and Testament of Marcus Cassidy, dated 1881. Found it tucked in the church records box, misfiled under B for baptisms instead of W for wills. He pointed to the relevant passage. "Listen. In the event of our deaths, we appoint Vera Thornwood as guardian of our son Jasper Cassidy, an executor of all property and assets associated with the Cassidy homestead." The words didn't make sense at first. Vera read them 3 times. "Why would they name me? I barely knew them." "Marcus remembered you." Dunn's voice was soft. "There was a mine collapse in 79. Bannock Silver Mine. You pulled him out, carried him 5 miles with a broken leg when the rescue crew couldn't get through. He told me about it once. Said you saved his life, wouldn't take payment, just left before he could thank you proper." Vera remembered a man trapped under timber, screaming, the mineshaft flooding. She'd done what anyone would have done. He never forgot, Dunn continued. And when he and Eleanor wrote their will, they named the only person Marcus said he'd trust with his son's life. He pushed the document across the table. "This supersedes Hargrove's guardianship claim. It's dated 2 years before the Cassidys died. Legal and binding." Jasper was staring at the paper like it might disappear. "Does this mean I can stay?" "If Judge Whitmore honors it," Vera said. "If it holds up in court." Dunn's face was grim. Hargrove's guardianship petition was filed 2 weeks after Marcus and Eleanor died. This will predates it by 2 years. Family wishes supersede kinship claims under territorial law. Hargrove doesn't know about this. No. And we need to keep it that way until Rose gets that telegram through. Dunn glanced at the window. If she finds out we have legal standing, she'll move faster. Do something desperate. Vera thought about the file bolt threads, the wagon that crashed where wagons didn't crash. 3 other families losing land after convenient accidents. She's already desperate, Vera said. They waited through the night. Dawn came grey and cold, the kind of morning that never really gets light. Vera made breakfast, eggs and the bread Jasper had learned to bake. He ate slowly, carefully, like someone still learning that food would be there tomorrow. Around mid-morning, a rider appeared. Not Rose, a young ranch hand Vera recognized from town. "Miss Tanaka sent me," the boy said, breathless. "Said to tell you the line's fixed. Sent her message 2 hours ago. Should have an answer by tonight. She all right? Cold and tired, but yes, He hesitated. "Also said to tell you, Hargrove rode past her office 3 times this morning. She knows something's happening." After the boy left, Vera and Jasper stood on the porch. The air tasted like metal. Another storm coming, maybe the last big one of winter. The creek ice was breaking up in patches, dark water visible underneath. What if the answer comes back wrong? Jasper asked. What if Judge Whitmore really did sign those papers? Then we have the will. We'll fight it in court. And if that doesn't work? Vera looked down at him. He was braver than most grown men she'd known, asking the hard questions, facing the answers. Then we run, she said. Canada's not far. Or California. Somewhere Hargrove's law doesn't reach. You'd leave your ranch? Everything you built. Little one, I built that ranch to have something to do with my hands. But you? She touched his shoulder. You're the first thing I built that matters in 7 years. He leaned against her, and they watched the horizon where Rose Tanaka was waiting for a telegram that would either save them or damn them. By Vera's count, they had 6 days left. The telegram arrived that night, but not the one they were expecting. Rose rode up to the ranch after dark, her horse lathered despite the cold. She didn't dismount, just handed Vera a folded paper. "Read it," she said. Her voice was tight. The message was brief: territorial clerk unavailable. Stop. Records office closed for inventory. Stop. Reply expected 7 to 10 days. Stop. 10 days, Vera said. I've got 6 left. It's deliberate. Rose's hands were shaking, though whether from cold or rage, Vera couldn't tell. I sent 3 follow-up messages. Same response every time. Someone's blocking access to those records. Hargrove has to be. She's got money, and money buys delays. Rose finally dismounted, swayed slightly. Vera caught her elbow. I haven't slept in 2 days. Every time I close my eyes, I see her watching the telegraph office. Inside, Jasper had hot coffee waiting. Rose wrapped her hands around the cup and Vera saw the blisters, rope burns from climbing telegraph poles, wire cuts across her palms. You should rest, Vera said. Can't. Hargrove is making her move. She pulled a torn piece of paper from her pocket. Found this nailed to the telegraph office door this morning. Same papers all over town. Vera read it aloud. Citizens of Redstone Valley, I call your attention to the matter of Vera Thornwood, who continues to harbor my nephew against legal court order. This woman, known to have killed 2 men in Denver 5 years past, now holds a child in her isolated ranch. I ask what manner of woman lives alone for 7 years then suddenly takes in a young boy. The law says he is mine to raise. Common decency says we should question her motives. D. or Hargrove? The implication hung in the air like smoke. She's turning the town against you, Rose said. Calling you a predator. Jasper's face had gone white. That's not true. Vera is not, she would never. I know that. Rose squeezed his hand. But fear spreads faster than truth, especially when a woman with money is spreading it. Father Dunn arrived an hour later with worse news. Judge Whitmore is in town. Arrived this afternoon, staying at Hargrove's land office. His face was grave. And Vera, there's talk. Bad talk. 3 men at the saloon saying you ought to be run out. One suggesting something worse. A rope, Vera said flatly. Dunn nodded. Hargrove's buying drinks, stoking fears. By morning, half the town will believe you're dangerous. Vera looked at Jasper, then at the will still lying on the table. Their ace, their trump card. Useless if they couldn't verify that Hargrove's papers were forged. We need another way, Vera said. Rose set down her coffee cup. There might be one. She pulled out the copper wire she'd found weeks ago. Remember this? Tool marks from surveyor's pliers. I've been asking around, quiet, about Hargrove's other land acquisitions. She spread a hand-drawn map on the table. In the last 3 years, she's bought or claimed for properties after the owners died in accidents. The McCreary Ranch, barn fire. The Chen homestead, rock slide. The Whitfield claim, drowning. And the Cassidys, wagon crash. You're saying she killed them all? Dunn said. I'm saying the pattern's clear. And I found something else. She pointed to a mark on her map. Every property has one thing in common. The Northern Pacific Rail Survey line runs through them. Every single one. Vera studied the map, saw the rail line drawn in red, cutting through Section 12 where the Cassidy homestead Saturday. She's not just stealing land. She's clearing a path for $10,000 in right-of-way payments from the railroad. Maybe more. Rose tapped the wire. And this tool mark, I compared it to the bolt you found from the Cassidy wagon. Same threading pattern. Same tool made both cuts. Can you prove it? Dunn asked. In court, maybe. But we need the actual tool. And Hargrove is not going to hand over a murder weapon. Rose's eyes were hard. Unless we make her. How? She cut my telegraph line on her own property. That wire is still there, and so are her tool marks. If I can get Sheriff Crane to see it, compare it to the wagon bolt, she trailed off. It's thin, but it's something. Outside, the wind picked up. Through the window, Vera saw torchlights in the distance. Riders coming from town. 4, maybe 5. Company, she said quietly. They came to a stop 50 yards out. Vera recognized the merchant who'd spoken at the church meeting and 2 ranch hands she'd seen in Hargrove's employ. The 4th rider stayed back, face hidden by a hat brim. Vera Thornwood. The merchant's voice carried over the wind. We're here on behalf of concerned citizens. You got a child in there that don't belong to you. We're asking peaceful like. Bring him out. And if I don't, then we stop asking peaceful. Rose moved to the window. That's not a citizen committee. That's a lynch mob in waiting. Vera checked her rifle. Loaded. Ready. She didn't want this, hadn't wanted any of this. But sometimes the right choice was the hard choice. And the hard choice meant standing your ground when running would be easier. Jasper, she said quietly. Get in the root cellar. Don't come out till I say. Vera. Now. He disappeared through the floor hatch just as the 4th rider moved forward into the torchlight. It was Delilah Hargrove, and she was smiling. Hargrove stayed mounted, her silver buckle catching the torchlight. Vera, we don't want trouble. Just give me my nephew and we'll leave peaceable. Your nephew is in legal custody of his parents' chosen guardian, Father Dunn called from the doorway. We have the will. Hargrove's smile didn't falter. A will? How convenient. Found just in time, I suppose. She addressed the men behind her. See how it works? A woman breaks the law, then invents paperwork to justify it. Judge Whitmore reviewed the situation this afternoon, one of the men said. He says your guardianship stands until a proper court hearing. Then we'll have a hearing, Vera said. In 6 weeks. Territorial Circuit Judge comes through in March. Hargrove leaned forward in her saddle. But you don't have 6 weeks, Vera. You have 5 days. After that, you're a criminal, and these good men will have every right to take that child by force. The merchant shifted uncomfortably. Delilah, maybe we should wait for the law. The law gave me custody. The law says she's breaking it. Hargrove's voice hardened. You want to wait while a known killer keeps a little boy locked in her house while she does God knows what to him? She's not doing anything. Jasper's voice came from inside the house. He'd climbed out of the root cellar, stood in the doorway with his small hands balled into fists. Vera saved me. Aunt Delilah is the one who hurt me. Hargrove's face went cold. Come here, Jasper. Right now. No. Come here, I'll have these men drag you out. Jasper looked up at Vera and she saw the question in his eyes. Will you let them take me? Before she could answer, Rose stepped onto the porch. Gentlemen, before you do something you'll regret, you should know I've sent a full report to the territorial marshal. Details about 4 suspicious deaths, all on properties Miss Hargrove now owns, including evidence of tool marks matching her surveyor's equipment. That's slander, Hargrove said, but her voice had lost its smoothness. It's investigation. And if anything happens to Vera Thornwood or Jasper Cassidy tonight, the report goes directly to the Federal Land Office. Rose held up a paper, already written, already sealed. My insurance policy. The merchant looked at Hargrove. You didn't say nothing about murders. There were no murders. These people are desperate, making up stories. Then let's examine your tools, Rose said. Right now. Compare the threading on your surveyor pliers to the marks on that telegraph wire. Hargrove's hand moved toward her coat and Vera saw the shape of a pistol underneath. The merchant saw it too, took a step back. Delilah, the merchant said slowly, maybe we should let the law sort this proper. The law has sorted it. I have legal papers. They have accusations and a questionable will. Hargrove looked at Jasper, and something ugly moved behind her eyes. You've got 5 days, Vera. Then I'm coming back with Sheriff Crane and a court order to seize this property. And when I do, that child's coming with me, whether he wants to or not. She wheeled her horse and rode off. The other men followed, but slower, glancing back with doubt on their faces. Father Dunn waited until they were out of sight. That report Rose mentioned, does it actually exist? I wrote it an hour ago, Rose said. Whether anyone would read it is another question. Inside, Jasper was shaking. Not from cold, from something deeper. Vera knelt beside him. I should go back, he whispered. If I go back, she won't hurt you. Won't take your ranch. Jasper. She'll kill me. He said it matter-of-fact, the way he might say it would snow tomorrow. But she'll do it quiet, make it look like an accident, like Mama and Papa. And then it'll be over, and you can keep your home. Vera pulled him close. He felt so small against her chest, this child who'd survived more than most soldiers. Listen to me, she said. You're not going back. Not today, not in 5 days, not ever. I don't care what papers Hargrove has or what threat she makes. You're staying here. But your ranch is just land. You're a person. She held him at arm's length, looked him in the eyes. My husband used to say, the measure of a person isn't what they own. It's what they're willing to lose for someone else. I lost him and our baby because I couldn't save them. But I can save you. And I will. Father Dunn's voice was quiet. We need a miracle, Vera. We need that telegram to come through, or we need Judge Whitmore to grow a conscience. Rose stood at the window, watching the torches retreat toward town. Or we need Hargrove to make a mistake. Desperate people always do. Outside, the creek ice split with a sound like rifle fire. Spring was coming, whether they were ready or not. 5 days left. The church bell rang on the 4th morning. Not the measured Sunday rhythm, but 3 sharp bursts that echoed across the valley. Emergency. Come now. Vera heard it from the forge where she and Jasper were finishing the horseshoe. He'd held the tongs steady while she struck the final blows, and now the iron cooled between them. Complete at last. What's that mean? He asked. Means Father Dunn's calling a tribunal. Vera set down her hammer. Town law. When a judge is corrupt or absent, citizens can convene to settle disputes. Will they listen? We're about to find out. By the time they reached the church steps, half the town had gathered. Rose stood near Father Dunn, a telegram clutched in her hand. Sheriff Crane was there too, looking tired. And Hargrove, her face tight with anger, Judge Whitmore beside her. Dunn raised his hands for silence. We're here because the law has failed us. A child's future hangs on paperwork that may or may not be legitimate, and we're told to wait weeks for answers. He looked at Hargrove. But some of us aren't willing to wait while a woman who may be a murderer takes custody of a 9-year-old boy. This is irregular, Judge Whitmore sputtered. I'm the legal authority here. You signed guardianship papers for Delilah Hargrove 2 weeks after the Cassidys died, Dunn interrupted. Fast work for a man who was supposedly in the territorial capital. I was in Lewiston, 40 miles away. In a blizzard, when the roads were closed. Rose stepped forward. I checked the weather records. No one traveled to Lewiston that week. The passes were snowed shut. Whitmore's face reddened. I had urgent business. You had urgent payment, Rose said. She held up the telegram. This came through an hour ago from the territorial clerk's office. They finally responded. She read aloud, Judge Horace Whitmore's signature on guardianship document dated September 15, 1882 does not match official signature on file. Handwriting analysis indicates forgery. Warrant issued for fraud investigation. The crowd erupted. Hargrove's hand moved toward her coat, but Sheriff Crane was faster, stepping between her and her horse. Don't, Crane said quietly. Hargrove's eyes darted to the judge, who'd gone pale. This is absurd. That telegram could be faked. The signature is yours, Delilah, Rose said. You forged the judge's name. Maybe the judge knew, maybe he didn't. But those papers are worthless. You have no proof. Oh, we have proof. Father Dunn pulled out the document, held it high. Marcus and Eleanor Cassidy's last testament, dated 1881. Properly witnessed, properly filed with the church. It names Vera Thornwood as guardian in the event of their deaths. He looked at the crowd. This supersedes any guardianship claim by blood relation. The Cassidys chose who they wanted to raise their son, and it wasn't Delilah Hargrove. Hargrove's composure cracked. That will is convenient fiction, probably forged by Thornwood herself. I witnessed the Cassidys' marriage, Dunn said. And I watched Marcus write this will 2 years later. It's legitimate. Then why wasn't it filed with the county? Because Marcus didn't trust the county clerk. He'd heard rumors that land records were being altered, that men were dying and their properties changing hands too quickly. Dunn's voice carried across the churchyard. He was right to be suspicious, wasn't he, Delilah? Hargrove took a step back. I don't have to stand here and be accused. You killed them. Jasper's voice cut through the murmur. He stood on the church steps, small but steady. You killed my mama and papa because you wanted their land. That's a lie. The wagon wheel. The bolt was filed. Sheriff Crane pulled a piece of metal from his pocket, the bolt he'd found months ago. I've been carrying this, trying to figure out what tool would make these marks. Then Rose showed me the telegraph wire. He pulled that out too, held them side by side. Same threading pattern. Same tool. You can't prove I own the tool. I can. Rose opened her bag, pulled out a pair of surveyor's pliers. Found these in your land office this morning. You left the door unlocked and I was checking for telegraph equipment. She held them up. The threading matches exactly. You broke into my office. That's illegal. So is murder, Crane said. He pulled out a pair of iron shackles. Delilah Hargrove, you're under arrest for fraud, forgery, and suspicion of murder in the deaths of Marcus and Eleanor Cassidy. Hargrove lunged for her horse, got one foot in the stirrup before Crane grabbed her collar and yanked her back. They went down in the snow together, Hargrove thrashing, Crane holding firm. I'll fight this, Hargrove snarled as the shackles closed around her wrists. I have money. I have lawyers. You have nothing. Father Dunn's voice was cold. The railroad company's been notified that the right-of-way through Section 12 is under legal dispute. They've withdrawn their offer. Your creditors know. By tomorrow, you'll have nothing but a jail cell. Crane hauled Hargrove to her feet. The crowd parted as he led her toward the sheriff's office. And Vera saw something she hadn't seen in weeks, townspeople looking at Jasper with sympathy instead of suspicion. Judge Whitmore tried to slip away, but Martha Crane blocked his path. Where do you think you're going, Your Honor? I have business in the capital. You have questions to answer, she said. About how many of Hargrove's documents you signed and how much she paid you. The judge sagged, suddenly old. Father Dunn turned to the crowd. Under territorial emergency law, I'm convening this tribunal to recognize the Cassidy will as legitimate and binding. All in favor of granting full guardianship of Jasper Cassidy to Vera Thornwood, say aye. The ayes rang out. Not unanimous, but strong. Enough. Opposed? Silence. Then it settled. Dunn pulled out adoption papers he'd prepared that morning. Vera Thornwood, do you swear to raise this child as your own, to protect him and provide for him to the best of your ability? Vera's throat was tight. I do. Jasper Cassidy, do you accept Vera Thornwood as your guardian and mother? Jasper looked up at Vera, his eyes bright. I do. Then, by the authority vested in me by the church and this assembled community, I declare this adoption legal and binding. Dunn signed the paper, handed it to Vera. He's yours. Legally, properly, finally. The crowd applauded. Rose was crying. Even Sheriff Crane, watching from the jail door, nodded approval. Vera knelt down and Jasper threw his arms around her neck. Can we go home now? He whispered. Yeah, little one. We can go home. They walked back to the ranch together, Rose and Father Dunn alongside them. The sun was breaking through the clouds, the first real warmth they'd felt in months. At the forge, the completed horseshoe waited. What do we do with it? Jasper asked. Vera picked it up, still warm from the morning's work. We hang it above the door. Means family lives here. He took one end, she took the other, and together they carried it to the house. The nail went in clean, and the horseshoe hung straight and true, catching the light. Behind them, the creek was running full for the first time since winter. The ice had broken. Spring was here. The paperwork took 3 weeks to finalize. The territorial clerk had to verify the will, countersign the adoption, transfer the homestead deed from the Cassidy estate to Vera as executor and guardian. Rose handled the telegraph correspondence, sending and receiving messages that slowly, methodically unwound Hargrove's web of fraud. They found evidence of 5 other properties, not 4, that Hargrove had acquired through suspicious deaths. The territorial marshal opened investigations into each one. Judge Whitmore resigned before he could be formally charged, fled to California. Nobody missed him. Hargrove herself sat in the county jail awaiting trial. Murder charges for the Cassidys, fraud for the forged documents, conspiracy for the rest. Sheriff Crane said she stopped talking after the first week, just sat in her cell staring at the wall like a woman watching her empire crumble to dust. Vera didn't think about her much. Had more important things to tend to. The ranch work came back into rhythm. Calving season started in March, and Jasper learned to bottle feed the orphaned calves, his small hand steady on the glass. He named each one, wrote the names in a ledger Vera bought him from the general store. Pansy, Clover, Stub, Patch Jr. You can't name livestock, Vera said, but without conviction. Why not? You named your dog. That's different. How? She didn't have a good answer for that. Rose came by twice a week, teaching Jasper to read and cipher. The boy took to numbers like he'd been born for them, could calculate feed costs and cattle prices faster than Vera could write them down. Rose said he had a mind for telegraphy, offered to train him when he got older. He could run the office someday, Rose said one afternoon, watching Jasper practice Morse code on the table with his fingers. Better future than ranching. Nothing wrong with ranching, Vera said. Nothing right about it either when you're breaking your back for pennies. But Rose smiled when she said it. She'd grown fond of them both, this makeshift family that didn't look like any family the town had seen before. Father Dunn visited on Sundays, always staying for dinner. Jasper had learned to cook from Rose, simple things at first, beans and cornbread, but getting better. By April, he could roast a chicken that didn't taste like boot leather, and Dunn proclaimed it a miracle worthy of biblical record. The Lord works through small hands, he said, and Jasper beamed. The town's attitude shifted slow, the way ice melts. Not all at once, but steady. People nodded to Vera on the street now instead of crossing to avoid her. Martha Crane invited Jasper to her daughter's birthday party. The blacksmith asked Vera's advice on a difficult weld, listened to the answer like it mattered. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, more like permission to start over. One evening in late April, Vera and Jasper rode out to check the fence line on the north pasture. The grass was coming in green, dotted with lupine and Indian paintbrush. The air smelled of warm earth and possibility. Jasper had taken to riding like he'd been born in a saddle, sat straight, hands light on the reins, reading the horse's mood through his legs. Vera had given him her gentlest mare, a grey named Silver who'd carried her husband on their last ride together 7 years back. Think the calves will sell good this year? Jasper asked. Should. Prices are up. Rails coming through next county over makes it easier to ship east. She paused. Of course, we could keep some of the heifers, start building the herd. If you're planning to stick around. He looked at her sidelong. Where else would I go? Nowhere. Just making sure you know you've got choices. Rose's offer about the telegraph office, that's a good one. Steady work, indoor. Don't want indoor. Want this. He gestured at the hills rolling away toward the mountains. Want to see things grow. Want to make something with my hands like you taught me. Vera felt something warm settle in her chest. Your mom and papa would be proud, the way you've come through this. You think they're watching? From heaven. I do. Then they see you too. See what you did for me. He was quiet a moment. You think they forgive you? Forgive me for what? For taking so long to be my mama. Her throat went tight. She'd never asked him to call her that. Mama. He'd started on his own weeks back, casual as breathing. She hadn't corrected him. I think they're grateful, she said finally. Same as I am. They rode in comfortable silence, checking fence posts and counting cattle. The sun was setting when they turned back toward the ranch, painting the sky orange and pink and gold. The house looked different now, less like a hermit's hideout, more like a home. Jasper had planted a garden in the side yard, neat rows of potatoes and carrots and beans. Rose had brought curtains for the windows, cheerful yellow fabric that caught the light. The horseshoe above the door gleamed in the last rays of sun. After dinner, stew that Jasper had made mostly himself with only a little help, they sat on the porch and watched the stars come out. The dog lay between them, snoring. The creek sang its spring song, high and clear. Mama. Jasper's voice was soft. Yes? Can I ask you something? Anything. When you opened the door that night, when I was on the porch and you didn't know me, why'd you let me in? You could have shut the door. Could have told me to go away. Vera thought about it. Remembered the wind, the knock, the choice that had changed everything. I suppose I was tired of being alone with my ghosts, she said. And you looked like you needed someone who wasn't. Wasn't what? Alone with their ghosts. He leaned against her shoulder. We're not alone anymore. No. We're not. They sat like that until the cold drove them inside. Jasper went to bed in the small room Vera had built for him, just a partition and a curtain, but his. She heard him talking to himself as he settled in, practicing the multiplication tables Rose had taught him. She stayed up working on the ranch ledger by lamplight. The numbers were better than they'd been in years. Turned out having help meant getting more work done, and more work meant more income. She'd be able to hire a hand come summer, maybe two. Build a proper addition to the house, fix the barn roof before next winter. Plans. She hadn't made plans in 7 years. Outside, an owl called. The dog woofed in its sleep. Jasper's voice drifted through the curtain. 7 times 8 is 56. 8 times 8 is 64. 9 times 8 is... He trailed off, already dreaming. Vera closed the ledger and banked the stove. Checked that the door was barred, old habit, though there was nothing to fear now. The horseshoe above it caught her eye, and she reached up to touch it. Still warm from the day's sun. Good things can't be rushed, she'd told Jasper. But when they came, when you built them right, with patience and care and hands that didn't give up, they lasted. She looked at the curtained room where her son slept. Her son, not by blood, but by choice, by the kind of bond that mattered more than any paper or law. Tomorrow they'd work the south pasture. Next week they'd ride to town for supplies. Next month the cattle would be ready to sell. Next year, who knew? But tonight they were home. And that was enough. Now I ain't one to say everything works out fair in this world. Seen too much to believe that. Good people die young. Bad people get rich. The law protects the powerful more often than it protects the powerless, and that's just the way of things. But sometimes, not often, but sometimes, the right choice finds the right person at the right time. And when it does, you'd best pay attention, because those moments are what make the rest of it bearable. Vera Thornwood didn't have to open her door that January night. Could have stayed inside with her ghosts and her silence, let the child freeze on her porch, told herself it wasn't her problem. Nobody would have blamed her. A woman's got a right to her solitude. But she opened it. And Jasper Cassidy didn't have to trust a giant stranger who looked like she could break him in half without trying. Could have run back into the blizzard, taken his chances with the cold instead of with another person's hands. But he knocked. And that choosing, hers to open, his to ask, that's what made them family. Not blood, not law. Just two broken people deciding they'd rather be broken together than alone. By summer, the ranch was thriving. Jasper turned 10 in June, and half the town came to celebrate. Brought gifts and cake and the kind of easy fellowship that said he belonged now, that he'd earned his place. Not by being perfect, but by being brave enough to keep living after everything tried to kill him. Rose taught him telegraphy that fall. Jasper had fast fingers and a mind that understood patterns. By winter, he could send and receive faster than Rose herself. Said he'd work the telegraph office part-time, help his mama with the ranch the rest. Best of both worlds. Hargrove hanged in September. Judge came through from the capital, heard 3 days of testimony about filed bolts and forged papers and 5 families destroyed for profit. Jury took 20 minutes to convict. Hargrove didn't say anything when they read the sentence, just stared at Vera with eyes that couldn't understand how she'd lost to a woman who owned nothing but a ramshackle ranch and a second-hand son. Vera didn't attend the hanging. Stayed home with Jasper, teaching him to shoe a horse. He was strong enough now to hold the gelding's leg steady while she worked, patient enough to learn the craft proper. "Why didn't you go watch?" he asked. After everything she'd done. Because killing a person, even a guilty one, ain't something to celebrate. It's just the world balancing its books. She set the hoof down gentle. "And I'd rather spend the day with you." He smiled at that. Not the careful smile of a child who's learned to please, but the real thing, wide and bright and unafraid. And years later, folks would tell the story different ways. Some said Vera was a hero who saved a helpless orphan. Others said Jasper saved her right back, gave her a reason to live instead of just surviving. Arguments over it could last whole evenings at the saloon. Truth was simpler than either version. They'd saved each other the way people do when they're desperate enough to try. Spring came every year after that, reliable as sunrise. The creek thawed, the grass grew green, the cattle fattened on good pasture. Jasper grew tall and strong, learned to read the weather and manage accounts and swing a hammer true. He took over more of the ranch work as Vera's joints stiffened with age. On warm evenings they'd sit on the porch, same spot where it all started, and watch the swallows nest in the barn eaves. The horseshoe above the door had weathered to a dull gray, but it hung straight and solid, a reminder of what they'd built together. "Think you'll ever forget that winter?" Jasper asked once, maybe 15 years old by then, looking more like his father every day. "Don't want to forget," Vera said. "Forgetting means we don't learn from it." "What did you learn?" She thought about that. About doors and choices and the difference between law and justice. About how the hardest thing in the world is trusting someone when trust has only ever brought you pain. "Learn that good things can't be rushed," she said finally. "But they're worth waiting for. Worth fighting for. Worth opening your door in a blizzard for, even when you don't know what's on the other side." He leaned against her shoulder, comfortable as breathing. "I'm glad you opened it." "Me too, little one. Me too." The sun set over the mountains, painting the world in shades of gold and amber. The creek sang its endless song. Somewhere in the distance, a meadowlark called. And above the door, the horseshoe gleamed in the last light. Not just metal anymore, but proof that broken things can be mended, that families can be chosen, and that sometimes the right door opens at exactly the right time. Spring always comes if you're patient enough to wait for it.